All right, and we're live. So let's just ping the Discord as usual. A few minutes late today, but that's not a big deal. All right, so today the plan is to start on the back end finally. Let me see, is the stream updated properly? Yeah. I did change the number, I wasn't sure. Yeah, so today the plan is to get started on Node and work through the initial lessons of the Node path. I did this intro to backend off stream just because it was really basic. So yeah, maybe we might make our way to this first project today. I don't know, we'll see what happens. I genuinely have no idea, but I'm just gonna get started doing some notes. You know, reading through it, and yeah. Without further ado, let's begin. JavaScript. Yo, how's it going? Welcome, welcome. Code runs note of sequence that it was written, i.e. any part A be run pending. Well, actually, that's not entirely accurate. Code may run out of sequence. It may run. Actually, forgot to switch my account. Okay, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't recognize that account. Write code that runs in response to events. I.e. collection of smaller functions. Oh, I thought it was urens. I wasn't 100% sure. Wasn't 100% sure, but welcome in. Hope you're having a good Sunday. For me, it's the morning. I don't know what time it is where you are, but it's 10:11 a.m. where where I am. So getting started bright and early today. Well, bright and early for me. I decided to sleep in a little bit. I slept in until about 9, so I had some stuff to do. 10:11 p.m. Oh, so you're exactly 12 hours ahead of me. Got you. Nice. Oh, Philippines. Got you. Nice. Yeah, literally the opposite side of the world. That's cool. This is especially true if you're writing. Because the server API, the API that you write has to serve the client, right? So it has to listen for requests. So that makes sense. I know that much anyway. Obsidian's so good. I stopped using Notion. Yeah. My girlfriend still uses Notion, but I love Obsidian because the thing with Obsidian is it's so simple compared to Notion. Like Notion I find so complicated for no reason. Like Obsidian, you can make it as simple or as complex as you want with the community plugins, right? Like I can go to these plugins. Where are they here? And I can just browse. There's 4,100 of them, right? So I can like any function I want, someone's written it, right? So if I want like a calendar or something, right? I can install this calendar extension, but I don't need to have it, right? I don't know. That's and like for example, I have Git and the minimal theme, so I can use Git to back up my notes. So if I go Command P and then Git commit and sync, that just links to my private repo and backs up my notes. I really like that. And Notion, as far as I know, doesn't have Git integration. I may be wrong, but I don't think it does. Yeah, you love it? Yeah, me too. The other thing I like too is the inclusion of hyperlinks. Like I can put, I not only can link external links like this, but I can also just do this and then link to other notes in my repository or vault, I guess. So that's pretty cool. Example. basically the code is anytime we got a network request to run this callback function. I think the port is 8080. Run this call back function. It's very rusty in coding today. Yeah, I feel that. I get what you mean, Renz. Like, especially like, and I'm really bad at this, is I plan for streams, right? So I like think about beforehand, like what I'm going to do on the stream. But if I don't actually practice a little bit before and like get warmed up before stream, I like find myself, it takes like at least one Pomo session before I feel warmed up. It's like doing any exercise, right? Like your brain needs time to like wake up a little bit. So I totally get what you mean. That's why I'm doing notes today for the most part. Although I think I'm gonna get I might get to this project today. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Short module. Okay. Wait, do I need to do the whole thing? Wait. Read the first 2 articles posted under the tutorials section. Introduction to the server side and the other one. Client server overview. Okay. So I can do this, and then I can do introduction to the server side. Include the link here. Take some notes. Yo, how's it going, Casey? Welcome in. Good afternoon, where you are. I'm assuming it's the afternoon. We're officially starting backend today, so big ups, I guess. Allows, this is kind of obvious. Yep, so we're just doing this basic intro to Node.js with a couple MDN articles. It's going to be mostly a study stream today. But as I said earlier, maybe we'll get to this initial basic info site project. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to go for 5 Pomos this morning. So I have some stuff I need to do this afternoon, so, you know, yeah, that's the plan. And then I'll be back again Tuesday evening. Client, server, communicate. GP. Request. URL identifying requested resource. Method that defines the required action. Get, post, put, delete, etc. Additional information encoded. Looking at this sure brings me back to when I first started learning backend. Yeah. Well, this is the beginning of the journey. So, yo, how's it going, Tente? We're a lot of this, like it's a decent amount of theory before project or doing it. Yeah. Some of this I am familiar with, like the whole like HTTP like request response kind of cycle. Like I'm somewhat familiar with this already. I just think I'm doing my due diligence and going through the theory again, just so that I can make sure that I have a rock solid understanding before well, not rock solid necessarily, but a solid understanding anyway, before I get into a big project. But I think the Odin Project's gonna kind of, baby me into it a little bit with some basic, basic projects to get started. Like, I'm not doing Express right away. Yeah, a lot of it I do already know, just by being, interested in computers and on the internet. I just know some of the stuff, and I mean, but it's interesting though, because none of this, and you'd think, oh, you take a CS degree, you learn some of this in school. No, I didn't learn a single thing about web development or front end, back end in my program at all. Where did you discover SQL Zoo? I'll try it. It was actually on Odin Project, Ren. So here, I can I'll send you the link right now, actually. Or actually, you can probably just like look it up. Yeah, it's just sqlzoo.net here. I'll copy and paste the link in the chat. You can check it out there. All right. Yeah, no worries, no worries. It honestly, some of the queries that I had to write yesterday were like pretty tricky. So like, it took me a solid 20 minutes to get some of them. So, and then there should be the response. Status line. Oops. The status of the request, i.e. 200 OK, 404 item, it's like resource not found or something. I think 404 is not found, etc. Something like this, right? Do I feel like I'm wasting my time in college? I prefer self-learning. Yeah, I mean, I think like, I don't know. It's kind of tricky. You have to. I think to be a successful, go to T. I think to be a successful developer, in my opinion, well, not successful developer, however you want, but I think the best way is to learn in school and to learn by yourself and kind of have both of those working together, because you're going to learn things in school that maybe you wouldn't have necessarily looked up yourself. Like for me, it was all of the theory behind DSA and complexity theory and like how computers and programming languages work at a very low level, like kind of like theory of programming and stuff like this, right? Like theory of programming languages, bit of functional programming, stuff like this. Like I would have never explored those topics on my own. And I think knowing those topics have given me a wider appreciation for the higher level web development and then project building stuff that I'm doing now, because it's like, okay, so I can see kind of the foundational, theory behind a lot of how these things work, right? I mean, that's kind of a little bit oversimplified, but just trust me, there are things you learn in school and you learn on your own that will complement each other, right? At least that's my experience anyway. So, diagram below shows a basic web server architecture, static site architecture. So when the user wants to navigate to a page, the browser sends an HTTP GET request. When user navigates page. Client sends HTTP GET request to the server. I already knew that. The ins and outs of what you want to learn when you're in college, yeah. And I mean, sometimes it does overlap. Like sometimes I was in a course where, you know, the stuff that we were learning was really interesting, but sometimes I was like, oh, why are we learning this? And then, you know, it became obvious later. Server retrieves the requested document. Server retrieves requested document. Like HTML page or something, right? And sends back status, usually 200, okay. And dynamic size. So this is very basic. There's only really one HTTP method you need. The client needs to, nothing really changes. I think a lot of college degree self-study is a must anyways. You cannot learn everything. Yeah, I totally agree. But what I mean by self-study versus like learning in school, what I mean by that more is choice of topic, right? Like, of course you have to self-study, but like some of the topics that are brought up in the classes that I took, I wouldn't have necessarily sought out on my own, right? That's more so what I meant. But yeah, I totally agree with you. If you work for a year or two before attending college, you'll truly learn more. Yeah, I also agree with that, Tente. Like, I think you learn more, generally speaking, on the job as well, especially when it comes to practical applications of the knowledge, right? Like, for instance, I have a degree in computer science. I work in IT. And in IT and computer science, there's a small amount of overlap, but not really. Like, if anyone, you know, knows anything about IT, there's a lot of different... Like, IT is basically, like, managing, like, it's basically like managing and kind of shepherding like computerized systems, right? Now that's a very broad term, but versus where computer science is more creating and understanding them at a deep, right? But so it's kind of, it's not quite, it's like the difference between an electrical engineer and an electrician, right? Or at least it kind of in my head. That's kind of the difference. I feel like you also can't sit down in class and do a multi-100-hour course on each language you go over. Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree with that. I totally agree. Like when you go to class, it's kind of like how I usually saw it is when I went to class, it was kind of like just an intro, right? So I'd listen to the I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a perfect student. I skipped some of the classes, but if I went to class, I would listen, maybe take a couple notes on ideas that I had during listening, right? And then I would go back and then I would go over the material again, maybe have the textbook if there was a textbook for the course, and then kind of do a more thorough revision of the material, right? Like lecture was just kind of an intro. That's kind of how I treated it. Or sometimes, I know some people like to go over the material before lecture. I didn't like to do that. I like to wait for lecture and then I would go over the material. I found that more useful. Because then I wouldn't be struggling with it on my own before I gave the prof a chance to explain it. So that's kind of like that was my method, I guess, when I was in school. And that's kind of why I'm doing this, because it's kind of mimicking a lot of the kind of revision that I would do in school. And I find that's just the way I've learned how to learn, so. Dynamic website is one where some of the response content generated dynamically. Yeah, so some response generated dynamically. Inserting data, i.e. data, it may be inserted from a database into placeholder HTML templates. Is about more of an example rather than that is. Returns different data for URL based on user provided information and preferences. right? Most of the code to support a dynamic website must run on the server. Most code to support this must run on the server. I guess it would be like server side programming. Yo, how's it going, Vibe Harmony? You back with my working speaker? Nice. Sorry about yesterday. I wasn't gonna type all my responses into chat. I was trying to do a stream, so I wasn't, unfortunately, like this just wasn't what I was gonna do. But I'm glad you can now hear me. I hope so. But yeah, no, I should get like automatic closed captioning at some point. I'm lazy on figuring these things out. The other thing I have to do is set up dual streaming. I'm procrastinating on doing that. Not gonna lie. How long am I going to be on, Jordan? I'll be on until, so I just finished the first Pomo session. So I'll be on another 2 hours, I would say. I'll be on until around 12:30 my time, so 2 hours. What project am I working on? I'm just starting out learning backend Vibe. So I'm learning backend like Node.js, just introduction. With the Odin Project as a guide. So that's kind of what I'm doing today. That's the plan. So it's gonna be mostly a study stream. So if you want to if you want to have my stream on the background as kind of motivation and work on your own thing, that's totally cool. You can also chat to me. I'll be available to chat. We have fun conversations sometimes. So that's kind of the plan for today. Just kind of a chill study stream / chat co-working session. So in your CS degree, did you learn exactly how computers work? I mean, I did take a computer, like an operating systems course, but I don't know if I would say exactly. But I learned a lot about how specifically programming languages work, like at a very fundamental level, like learning starting with like finite state machines, working our way up to Turing machines. And then from Turing machines, introducing the lambda calculus to model the Turing machines and other sort of Turing complete languages. Like lambda calculus is the most minimal Turing complete language you can have, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. And then so kind of building up programming fundamentals from those building blocks to kind of understand how all programming languages work at a very fundamental level and how the computer understands and interprets instructions to actually run meaningful code. Learn nothing. Yeah, I mean, you learn stuff. I don't know. It depends also on what program you do, right? Like some of you guys have mentioned to me that you've done projects where you or not projects, have done degrees where you learn a lot of web development and web stuff, right? Whereas in my degree, it was very theory based, so we didn't learn any practical technologies at all. It was all theory, right? You learn very little in college if you don't work in the field. Yeah, I mean, again, I think, Tante, my thing is you learn stuff in college, but the overlap between what you learn in college and what you learn in the field, like working, is not very much. There's not much overlap. However, I will say, like, and I when I say overlap, I mean direct overlap. There's a lot of indirect overlap. Like there are some things you learn in college. At least this is my experience. If your experience is different, then I totally respect that. But for me, there's a lot of things where it would be indirect. Like I'd learn something in my job, and I'd be like, oh, that makes sense because of something I learned in my degree, right? But it wouldn't be a direct one-to-one translation. Are you on GitHub? Yeah, I am. You can follow me on GitHub there if you wish. I have a lot of my I did mostly front end up to this point, Vibe Harmony, but you can follow me on GitHub there if you desire to. You don't have to. That's my GitHub. I haven't committed in a while because I haven't actually worked on projects in a bit, but I plan on getting back into that. So kind of like for anyone kind of more new here, my plan for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would say, or maybe 6 to 8 weeks, I don't know how long this is going to take, is to finish this Node.js course. And then I'm going to get into building some actual like self-directed projects that are full stack, right? So that's kind of my plan, is I'm going to finish this course and then I'm going to, that'll basically cap off the Odin project for me. Because there is another course on like getting hired and building a portfolio. That I might do on stream. I might build a portfolio. I'm not sure. But after that, I'm going to transition to more self-directed learning and building projects live. Have I ever participated in a hackathon? I have not, but I had the opportunity to, but I didn't because I was busy. But I have had friends that have done hackathons, and they're very cool, and I would recommend them, from what I understand of how they are. When I was younger, like when I was really young, actually, I used to do a bit of game development, not seriously, mind you. I was like 12, 13 years old, and I used this really simplistic game engine called GameMaker, where that's kind of like how I learned how to code, quote unquote. But anyway, so I used GameMaker like in the early 2010s, right? Like GameMaker 8, whatever it was, GameMaker 8.1, and I think it was like this light mode garbage thing. It looked like shit anyway, but it was simple because I also got it for free. Anyway, I'll finish this anecdote and then I'll get back to working here. But yeah, so I did game jams when I was young, or I did a couple of them way back, like 2013, 2014, like around that era. I did a couple of those. I produced absolute garbage, but I made a couple little small things. So I have a rough idea of hackathons. You're on your way to finding good teammates for the hackathon? Well, it depends, like, if the hackathon is virtual or not, right? Because if it's a lot of hackathons are in person, from my understanding. So anyway, all right, let's get back into this. But yeah, no, you have to find good teammates, because if you find bad teammates, then you're just going to end up doing all the work yourself, or your teammates are going to use AI, which, depending on your intentions, that might be good or bad, I guess. I've actually heard anecdotally from a couple friends that using AI in hackathons is a huge issue. Well, like huge issue in the sense that it kind of takes the fun out of it, right? But I don't know. Okay, let's see. Dynamic, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we got this. Server-side programming, diagram below, architecture. Yeah, CSS, JavaScript images. Requests are handled in a similar, actually in the same way. So it'd be like HTML/CSS/JS, right? So this is the side. Oh, that's the client here. Goes to the web server. Server-side code shown in the diagram is web application. Okay, server-side code. Sometimes, or also known as the web application. I don't know if that's like a thing that's common. The running server-side code. Server-side and client side programming the same. They have different purposes and concerns. Server-side. Okay. Client side. Size. Code running in the browser. So it would be stuff like stylings, or wait, JS concerned with appearance, UI layouts, navigation, form validation, etc. Validating submitted data, fetching or querying databases. Web developers can't control what browser. Browsers providing consistent levels of compatibility with client-side code features. Server-side code can be written in any number of programming languages. We know this actually. I don't even need to include this. Developers typically write their code using web frameworks. Code written using web frameworks. Collections, functions, objects, rules, and other constraints that solve common problems. Speed up development of server-side app. So I guess, is Node a web framework? Node is the web library, is well suited for the foundation of a web library or framework. It's a bit tough to say because the words are not well defined. Interesting. Not a framework, it's a JavaScript runtime environment. Okay, that makes more sense. The framework then would be like Express. I think Express is it's a routing framework. Okay. Cool. All right. That actually makes sense because Node.js is kind of like an extension of a language, right? It kind of allows you to write JS in that kind of server context. That makes sense. Where did I put that anyway? Yeah, so this makes Node a JS runtime environment, not a framework in itself. Okay. I'm curious, do you always use Pomo timer to study, and how does it affect your focus? I might try as well later. Yeah, I think for me, Januar, it kind of just helps me chunk out like exactly you focus for 25 minutes, right? You're kind of locked in for that time. I mean, I know I chat to you guys too, but when I'm doing Pomo on my own, I'm locked in for that 25 minutes, and then you get 5 minutes to just not worry about working, and kind of your mind can kind of reset. And I find for me, it kind of increases my stamina for working for longer periods of time. Like if I don't use a Pomo timer, I find I tend to burn out after about 90 minutes. So about an hour and a half, I start to feel burnt out. But if I do Pomo, I can go for double that time or longer, right? Usually I go for the streams, I do 5 Pomo timers just because streaming on top of the Pomo timer is a little bit more work, but that's fine because I want to show my process. But like if I'm doing Pomo by myself, I can usually go for 6, maybe 7, maybe 8 Pomo sessions, right? But I wouldn't go longer than 8. I would not do one working session that's longer than 4 hours, personally, even with the 5-minute breaks. I would take a longer break after that, just because you gotta like get up and stretch and. But yeah, I think it's effective. I think if you want to work more consistently, it really helps to kind of hone your focus. And the other thing that I like about the Pomo too is that it kind of allows you to see the progress you're making as you go. Like for example, if you're already on your 4th Pomo session, you're like, I've already done an hour and a half basically of work, right? So it's kind of satisfying to see. Whereas if you don't use the Pomo timer, you kind of lose track of time, and you're like, I don't know how long I've been working. I feel tired, and maybe you've only been working an hour, and you're like, ugh, I'm exhausted. So kind of, I don't know, it helps me personally, but yeah, that's kind of what I would do. And if you want to use the Pomo app that I use, you can go to the site there. That should work. Maybe. There you go. That's the site I use, pomofocus.io. So it's free. It's completely free. Simplify layout. Frameworks in server and backend programming are much more necessary. I guess maybe not necessary, much more useful. As implementing, e.g. implementing an HTTP server from scratch is really challenging. But frameworks provide these functions out of the box, right? Server-side application. Have you done DSA? If yes, which language and from where? How much time it took for you to build logic? Trinity. At least I think that's what your name is. Yeah. So I did a lot of DSA when I was in my CS degree. So I do have a CS degree. You can see my little introduction there in case you're new. But yeah, so I did a lot of DSA, and a lot of it was in Python specifically. So I did a lot of DSA in Python just because it's kind of like almost like pseudocode. I do not know C++ or anything like that. I know a lot of the intense competitive programming folks use C++, but no, I've done DSA in Python, only in Python. And for how much time it took me to build up logic, I think I kind of built it up slowly. I went into my degree knowing a basic programming, like conditional statements, like if statements, loops, functions, stuff like that, like basic programming knowledge, right? I went in already knowing that from when I was a kid. But the more complicated stuff like data structures and algorithms, I kind of just learned as I did them in the courses that I took, right? Like I took a data structures and algorithms course that kind of went through stacks, queues, graph theory, Dijkstra's algorithm, depth first search, breadth first search, and then eventually I took a more complicated course that went through like greedy algorithms, dynamic programming, et cetera, right? So I kind of built up the knowledge through those courses over the course of 2 years. Currently doing it in C++ for Strivers A2Z. Have you heard about it? Have you heard about him? No, I have not. It is, yeah, I haven't heard of that actually. Although I will say my focus right now is not to improve on data structures and algorithms. Maybe eventually I will, but for right now, my focus is learning web development. So I'm currently starting on backend. I'm just doing an introduction to Node today. So that's my goal. But yeah, maybe at some point I'll return to DSA because I did do a lot of DSA stuff in my program, and I would say I'm at a kind of beginner intermediate level with DSA stuff. Anyway. Server-side programming, store account information, efficient storage. Creating a separate static page for each product. Server-side programming allows us instead to store information in a database. Allows storage of database and constructs. Based on that info, return data for rendering by appropriate client side. Can also return data in form of JSON, etc. for appropriate rendering on the client, i.e. the client knows what to do with that provided info to render something. Server is not limited to sending information from databases. It might alternatively return the result of software tools or data from communications. Content can even be targeted for the type of client device. Content may be servers can store and use information about clients to provide a convenient and tailored user experience. For example, many sites store credit cards, so the details don't have to be entered again, blah, blah, blah. Storing, commonly used, e.g. login, credentials, payment, info, etc. Customized content feeds, e.g. Instagram shows posts you may be interested in based on previous viewing and interaction history. Controlled access to content. Yo, sup, J-Mac? Have you, how's the apartment hunt in Toronto going? Said programming allows sites to. Yeah, okay. Restricted access to some content based on user privilege or other metrics or other criteria, I guess. Toronto. What's with the rain? Yeah, I know. It was really bad yesterday. And today it's a little better, but you know, yeah, it's brutal. I don't know if you're already over here, but yeah, it's not great. But I'm already in the, I know you probably know this, but I'm already in the new apartment, so you know, I'm not in Toronto, but I'm close enough to it that we share weather probably, so, or like broad weather patterns. Yeah, restrict access or criteria, e.g., who follow, like creators, a user follows content from something like this, right? Store session / state info. All right, so let's say sessions. Information associated with current user of site. This is kind of related to this. Yo, what was the wildest session ever? Wildest rain session ever? I went to Anime North and that rain ruined the whole day. Damn. I didn't even know Anime North was happening. Not that I watch animes. Usually I know about these things though, because my girlfriend watches anime, but I don't really, I don't know. I've seen a couple, but I'm not a huge anime person. Although I'd like to get into it more. But that's cool. I'm also, yeah, I'm a little out of the city, so I'd have to commute into go to stuff like that. I think there is something. What's the thing that she wants me to go to? That's happening in Toronto. It's not Comic-Con. It's like something like that. Fan Expo, maybe. Fan Expo happens in like August. I don't remember. I might have to go to. I might have to go to that. Send general. Actually, I'll just. This is privacy problem. What they buy, what they recommend. Blah blah blah. To tailor recommend. To them, whether it be products to buy, content to watch or view, etc. Okay, cool. I think this is pretty much apps or posts with greater, higher interaction will be more likely shown to more users. Virality. Something like this. Bro, I'm stuck with my ML-based detection program. Can you help me fix and improve it? I don't know if I'm the right person to ask for that, Vibe Harmony. I don't know a lot about ML-based stuff, like machine learning. I mean, you can always like go into my Discord community and ask somebody. Like you can post it to. We have a couple channels. We have a learning and help channel which you could post it to, and then see if someone in my community wants to help you out. But there's 160 people in there. You know, there you can always ask. Maybe somebody will help you. But again, I'm not sure I'm the most well equipped for that. But you can totally feel free to take advantage of my community for that. Well, not it sounds brutal to say take advantage of it, but to use it as a resource, I suppose. But anyway, okay. Congratulations, you've reached the end of the first article. Blah 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 blah. You've now learned blah blah blah. Okay, you should also understand it's useful because it allows users to create websites that I knew all of this mostly. Okay. Client-side overview. How long is this? Holy shit. Oh, client server overview. Well, that's part of why we're doing this, because we want to do a thorough exploration of these concepts, right? Now that you know the purpose and potential benefits of server-side programming, we're going to examine in detail what happens. Blah, blah, blah. Most websites. Web servers and HTTP. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to let that. I'll do that on the next POMO. I'm actually going to run to the washroom real quick on this break, and I'll be back in a minute or two. So, see you then. All right, I'm back. Let's grab a snack. All right, sounds good, Casey. Have a good ride. That sounds fantastic. I've actually, fun fact, I've never ridden a horse before. That's really cool. The weather here is ass. It's terrible. It's still raining. I just looked out the window and there are folks that are running, like for exercise outside. That's ridiculous, personally. But considering it's like 15 and rain, but not me doing it, so whatever. It is what it is. If you want to do that. I'm actually going to stand-up mode for a couple sessions here. Raise the desk up. Riding horses is something you need to like. I guess I have a weird mixture of things I'm interested in. That's really cool though, Casey. Just gonna do a little stand-up session. This thing is so slow. Come on. There we go. Nice. Cool. I very much like this desk. Even though it's slow, but that's okay. At least it lifts on its own. People ask me, "Oh, what are you studying?" I'm like, "Oh, cybersecurity." Well, I'm out of my horse. That's dope though. That's really awesome. Have you seen that Meloni and Modi reel? I have not. Not 100% sure what that's referring to. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, no, that's really cool. You know what? Like that. If I could learn how to ride a horse, I would. Um, but I do not have access to a horse, unfortunately. I'm sure there are places where you can learn, but you know, it's just something I haven't. I need to start the brain up again. It's just not something that I've done or had the opportunity to do. Not that I've necessarily sought it out, but let's continue this content here. I think yeah, just this article, and then what? We have another article about Node with some videos. What? Short video. Yeah, I'm not gonna watch the video stream. That's okay. All right, let's get started here. Web servers and HTTP. We already have a lot of this stuff here. We have the request response, URL identifying the resource, method that defines the required action, additional information, URL parameters, post data, post data, client side cookies, etc. Web servers wait for client request messages, process them when they arrive, and reply to the web browser with an HTTP response. Code, which we already put. An HTML page is returned. It is rendered by the web browser. As part of the processing, the browser may discover links into other resources. We'll send separate HTTP requests to download these files. Okay. Have you watched cricket? I have not. I do watch baseball though. I know that's different, but I do watch baseball. I can't really get into cricket. I don't know. It's just cricket is so different from baseball that I don't know. I find it a hard time to get into it. But it's similar enough, I guess. I don't know. I've seen I've had cricket explained to me before. Um, but yeah, I think the thing with cricket that I don't like personally, and this is just a personal opinion, is that you can hit the ball in any direction. Like for baseball, I like the challenge of having to hit it fair, like within the 90 degrees of first and third base, but I don't know. Both are great sports, though. I just personally haven't gotten into it. Okay, get request response. Information of the requests. Analogous to how the head of an HTML contains useful info about that document, right? Target resource URL, which is URL params, target website, post, and protocol version, the ending. Do it like this, better. Which city do I live again? I won't say the specific city, but it's near Toronto, Canada. Coffee. It's the same time zone as Toronto, Canada, but I don't live in Toronto. Other information on how large it is. Content length 41,823. I assume that's bytes. Right. Or kilobytes? I don't know. So there's our response. Format of the request is almost the same as the GET requests. The first line identifies the post, yes. The response, okay. Response from request is shown below. The status code of 302 found tells the browser the post succeeded. Tells browser request succeeded. And that it must issue second request to load page specified in the location field. So it's kind of looking for what? This, you can edit this, okay. And then what? This location has that profile here. Okay, that makes sense. Static sites, one that returns the same hard-coded content from the server, whenever a particular resource is requested. I already kind of know this stuff. We kind of wrote about it already. Get another similar product to your site. Start to get really inefficient. By looking again at the static site architecture diagram. Server retrieves a requested document from the system and returns HTTP. Yeah, so for static sites, we only really need to send GET requests from the client, as there is no dynamic modification of content returned from the server, i.e., or like information from client does not impact what is returned from the server at a content level. Because again, you might have like accessibility differences, but those accessibility features would be client side, right? So if you have like something like a screen reader or something that's not, so that wouldn't really count as dynamic. This would not count. That's kind of just an idea that I have, right? Like, because if you're on a static site, you know, one person using the static site, say on mobile, or device specific styles would be client side, not server side. Yeah. So if you're viewing a static site on mobile versus on desktop, the content may appear different because you're viewing it on a phone versus on a desktop, but that doesn't really count as dynamic. Because why? Because it's just the client is changing how that's rendered. It's not, nothing is different about the actual content that's returned from the server. Using the example of product site, the server would store product data in a database rather than individual HTML files. Dynamic info is often stored in a database that is then queried, on the server side to dynamically populate content that is then returned to the client. Correct. Good. Using database allows the product information to be stored efficiently in an easy, extensive, modifiable, searchable way. Yes, we know this. Databases provide content storage that is flexible, extendable, etc. Section provides a step-by-step overview of the dynamic HTTP request and response cycle, building on what we looked at in the last article. Much more detail. Order dynamic web request sequence. 1. Client web browser creates GET requests to the server. I'm going to generalize this, I think. Fetching data. Okay. The web, okay, I want to make this italicized, web server detects the request is dynamic and forwards it to the web application. For processing. The web application identifies what the request is for based on the URL and determines the required info or information that needs to be queried, needs to be retrieved to populate the request. Web application and the web application returns the generated HTML to the client web browser via the web server, right? Along with status code. Or 4.4 not found if the requested info does not exist. client web browser will begin to render the returned HTML page, sending subsequent requests for CSS and JavaScript as needed. Based on what is referenced in the HTML page given, right? Because we could have a HTML page that returns that requires different CSS and JS based on the dynamic nature of its construction. Right? I think. Web server, if I can type, geez. Load static files, IE or EG, CSS or JS, and returns them to the browser directly without going through the web application, right? Updates to, or operations to handle updates in the database are handled similarly, but the HTTP request from the browser would be a post with data with attached data to update database records, right? Job of the web application is to receive. I should probably put this up. We'll be sending example. The web application might send an email to confirm registration. May send user an email to confirm registration to the site. Logging info or other operation. So, okay, like user user search history, interactions, etc. Okay. Turning something other than HTML. Server-side websites do not necessarily have to return HTML snippets. Web server can return content other than HTML. And dynamically create and return other files like PDFs, CSVs, JSON, XML, etc. Server-side web frameworks make writing code handle operations described above much easier. Okay. All right, let's take another 5-minute break. I'm going to probably lower the desk again because I'm lazy. So we're going to lower this guy. All the way down to 4. Or 33. There we go. Cool. Nice. Now we're back to sitting, and then I'll do 2 more sessions today. Hopefully finish off this Node.js. Actually, I'll definitely finish off this Node.js course, or not course, lesson. Then what else do we have? Getting started. So we'll actually get a Node project created, maybe in the last session, and then debugging. Video. Check out this Visual VS Code Node debugger documentation. So I think probably next stream will be well equipped to start with this project. Oops, that is not what I wanted to drag this back. This aerospace thing makes it really tricky. Oh. Just open it up again. Kind of a slow stream this morning, but I kind of expected that because Sunday people are kind of hanging out with family, stuff like that. But that's okay. Kind of a very like filler episode today. I feel like that's okay. But it's good though. We're getting started with with backend. I'm really looking forward to digging my teeth into some projects. And actually starting to, because we're every day that goes by, we're getting closer and closer to building our own projects that hopefully we can be proud of and stuff like that. Yeah. Gotta stay consistent through the more boring kind of, study heavy sessions, right? So that's kind of just what it is, I guess. Right. Do another 25 here, guys. We got 2 more 25-minute pommos left, and then I will call it a stream for today. Okay, so web framework simplifies server-side web programming. One of the most important operations. Provides simple mechanisms to map URLs for different resources and pages to specific handler functions. Makes code easy to read and organize and keep organized. Organize. I guess I should say organize. Change the URL to deliver a particular feature in one place without having to change the handler function. Can convenient as the URL to access a particular resource can be changed without having to touch a handler function. Right? For example, considering the following Django code that maps two URL patterns to two view functions. Interesting. The first pattern ensures that the HTTP request with a resource URL of best will be passed to a function named index in the views module. The request as the pattern. Okay, cool. Web framework also makes it easy for a view function to fetch information from the database. Simplifies fetching data from a database. Structure of our data is defined in models. Structure data defined in models. Oh, this is, I guess, that's not really relevant to this broad thing because this is more Python specific. That out. Which a Python class is defined. Okay. The example below gets a list of all the teams that have the exact same team type of junior. Any other types of matches, and we can daisy chain them. Also control the order and the number of results returned. Cool. What am I building today, Uzair? I am learning Node.js for the first time. So that's our plan. If you're new here, most of the streams up to this point have been focused primarily on front-end technologies. So learning HTML, CSS, JS, TypeScript, React. I spent a lot of time on, well, not a lot, I guess, probably like 30 streams on React. So you can go back in my VOD history and look at that. I spent the last couple of streams doing some SQL query writing. And then today today's just a study stream for Node. So I'm going to get into some back-end programming. I'm going to finish this Odin Project Node.js course. And then after that, I'm going to get into building my own projects. So we're still very much in kind of the learning phase, I guess, but exciting things to come for sure. that's kind of that's the plan for the next couple months. Let's see if there's anything in here that is not overlap, because I feel like a lot of this is also just restating what we already learned, right? Both your browser and JavaScript and Node.js run on the V8 JavaScript runtime engine. This engine takes your JavaScript code and converts it to faster machine code, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Runtime built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine. Event-driven, non-blocking I/O model that makes it lightweight and efficient. We already kind of covered this stuff, I think. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So there's some neat details here that we might want to take into consideration. What is this called? What exactly is Node.js? JS is single threaded, or has, I guess, has a single threaded event loop. Results result in blocking IO, which means that that IO requests are handled in the strict order they are received. They cannot concurrently, or they will not, I guess. Would not. You've learned JavaScript 60-70%. Tomorrow is my quiz. Nice. Are you in university or college? I'm assuming so. That's pretty cool. I didn't even learn JavaScript in my program, which that's kind of why I'm here doing this now, because I didn't learn JavaScript in my program, so I want to kind of go through it myself and learn it. Not just JavaScript, but also just like back end, front end, web development in general. No, I enrolled in full stack. Nice, that's cool. Non-blocking IO. So I want this to be a non-blocking requests eliminates need to specifically put requests on put additional so I guess non-blocking is a non-blocking IO model, yeah. With Node specifically. Okay. JavaScript event loop. If you have 26 minutes, so is this the JavaScript? Okay, so JS event loop. push main onto call stack, push console.log onto call stack. Started learning web development, completed front end, started back end, started DSA. I have 4 months till my college placement starts. Can I do interview level DSA and make good projects in 4 to 6 minutes? Or months? Sorry, months. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I don't know how your name is pronounced. I'm gonna say Sivtej. Sivtej. I'm not 100% on that. But I think so. Yeah. So I think the best way to do interview level DSA problems, at least from what I've seen, is to do leak code or other kind of code challenges. At least from what I've heard from others. That would be kind of my recommended approach for interviews specifically. And the other thing you can also do, I mean, I'm not going to give you a full roadmap. I'm not going to give you a full roadmap because I think that's something you should kind of, you know, you can find there are many roadmaps. I used the Odin Project as my roadmap, which is a free and open source web development curriculum. But you know, I kind of just do my thing here. I'm not necessarily here to, you know, mentor you specifically, but I'm here to kind of more so provide some information as well as some inspiration. But I think you can use the Odin project. There's a lot of good projects in there that you can use. Like there was one that I built that's like a battleship game that's really, really good. And you can also build projects that incorporate DSA as well. So that kind of, you get practice on both at the same time. I think this actually is not quite, this is kind of specific to this code. So I'm going to kind of put that code, I guess, onto this. And then this is 0, and then the last console log, right? Something like this. For the code snippets below. No problem, Shift-Tej. Hope that helps you out. Timeout. The event loop sees that the call stack is empty and the callback queue is not empty, so it moves the callbacks. The event loop sees call stack is empty, but the callback queue isn't, so it moves callbacks in order to call stack for to be executed. Cool. Require those modules to come bundled with Node.js file system. Okay. We'll do like a node module. Node module, reusable block of code, which does not. Can write your own modules to be used in various functions. There are also a set of built-in modules which can be used without. I don't think I need to know all the C++ information specifically. Something that happened to our app. Okay. Events, custom events. Okay. System events. Node events, I should say. Node events. System events. C++ core library called libuv. We finish reading file. Custom events. JS core. Defined in JS core. Cool. All right, this is probably like an older article, I feel like, though. I'm not 100% sure. Does it say? Yeah, 2018. Yeah. All right, cool. So that's that. I'm not going to watch this video on stream, so that's fine. What is Node? We know Node. Additional resources, don't care. All right. And of course, we know these things. Build your own Zoom COVID-19 tracker. Very old. Very fun. Okay. Cool. All right, so I think this is now getting into setting up our first node project. Right? I think so. Yeah, getting started like we learned in the introduction. This lesson will take you through a tutorial that will teach you the basic modules and functions that you'll need to get up and running with Node.js. Project that comes at the end of the section will ask you to use Node to create a basic website that will include an index, about, and contact me page. Cool. Okay. Let's try this out here. I'll bring this to my other desktop. Okay, so explain some things. Set up a basic web server with Node.js using the HTTP module. Read, create, update, delete from Node.js. Use URL module to parse URL address and split into readable parts. Removed a large amount of content from their website. Several of those removed pages were linked in this lesson. Until we find a replacement for content that will be linked directly to Markdown files. Format may look a bit odd, but the content should be just as good. Okay. Dive in and start looking at the Node server-side code. We'll be hopping around lessons in the Node.js docs. Okay. So run Node.js scripts from the command line. Okay, so let's open up our terminal. Well, that should not have taken that long. That takes so long. Let's terminal. That take long too. Oh, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Just trying this because it's like loading a bunch of bullshit. What the fuck did I do? No, no. That's the wrong thing. This is what we want. There we go. I put the chat on the screen. Not what I wanted to do. Okay, so we can. I don't know. The terminal loading times are kind of annoying, but. Your main known application is app.js, you can call it. Okay. Pass string argument to node. Okay, but I don't actually have a node. I don't actually have a project here. I need to set up a project. It's part of the issue, so I don't know what problem is here. Check out docs for nodes HTTP module. Oh boy. But I want to just like get started with a project. Or do we even like make something? Oh, the project that comes at the end of this section. Oh, okay. So I'm just making notes at this point. So this isn't actually doing anything with a project. Event emitter. I just want to do a. Yeah, okay. So I'll go through these then, I guess, just as a note. Taking notes. That's fine. So we'll do that then. All right, so let's see. Intro to Node, that's fine. We'll do running Node. Also probably like do like a Node. We're not actually setting up a project. The project setup is this one here. That makes sense. If you get stuck, make a project and create the following files inside the directory. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Cool. The usual way to run Node.js program is to run the globally available node command. Jeez. Above, you're explicitly telling the shell to run your script with Node. You can also embed this information in a JavaScript file with a shebang. Line the shebang in the first line of the file until it goes interpreter to use for running the scripts. Into JS directly using a shebang line. Telling the OS which interpreter to use. And so something like this. I'll just do JS. And here, like this. How do you self-learn from Odin? I see Odin Project confusing. I have so much to read and not even like roadmap or like step by step. Well, so this is, I think, kind of the philosophy of the Odin Project kind of differs from something like Free Code Camp, right? So Free Code Camp, if you want more of a prescriptive step by step, you should use Free Code Camp. Okay, so Free Code Camp has these very much follow along, tells you exactly what to do for each lesson, right? Like if I'm making an HTML music player, okay, so I go here and it tells me exactly what to do, right? And I think that's good for, and the other thing too is you don't have to set up the environment's within the browser, right? So that's really good for absolute beginners that want a kind of they want to be told exactly what to do. Maybe they don't know how to navigate, kind of self-direct their learning, right? Which is fine. That's totally, valid. But Odin Project's more open-ended. Who's there? So basically, you can kind of define the way that you're learning yourself and kind of do it more independently. Jordan, I'm working on just basic Node stuff. So I'm just going through this documentation. Yeah, that's kind of the plan. So, we're going to get to some more projects here. Hopefully we'll get to this project next stream. But I'm probably going to spend the rest of today going through this documentation. So that's kind of the plan, I guess. And I'm taking one more break. Then I'm going to do another 25 minutes. And then I'm going to end stream for this morning or I guess it's technically afternoon now. Because I have some stuff I have to do this afternoon. And then tomorrow I'll be off. And then I'll be back Tuesday evening. You can check the Discord for the schedule for this week. I have posted it. I think it's, I'm streaming today, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Is it Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that? Yeah, I have to use the Free Code Camp for HTML. I'm just having second 2 from Odin because I have a lot of people speaking about it. Yeah, I think Odin is good if you're a little bit more self-directed with your learning and you want to kind of have more control over your learning path, right? Because with Odin, you can kind of approach it however you want. Like for me, I find it effective when I'm going through theory, like very theory-heavy things. I find it effective to go through the documentation and write notes, right? Because that's how I understand things best. But if you don't want to write notes, then that's totally fine. You can learn however you want to. And also you get practice setting up the environments and the projects yourself instead of having the project environment kind of embedded within the browser. Because it kind of gives you more of that real world application practice. Where did I find Node.js? Okay, so basically what you have to do, Jordan, is you have to go to dashboard, and then so you have to finish the foundations first, right? So the foundations is like it's a whole course. I did it on stream. Then once you finish the foundations, you can go to the full stack Ruby on Rails or the full stack JavaScript project or path, I guess. Then you select that path, and then you go through those modules here. There's different courses. So there's like intermediate HTML, CSS, JavaScript, advanced HTML, CSS. I finished all of these on stream. And then at the very bottom, there is Node.js. the Node.js course within the JavaScript path. So that's where you find that. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. And then after I finish this Node.js course, I'm going to move on, kind of graduate from the Odin project and build my own things. And then, so the format of these streams is going to be a lot more practice rather than like rote learning. But I would imagine this course is going to take me probably 6 weeks to finish. I would suspect maybe that's a little bit of an overestimate. But I think it'll be around that time. Anyway, that's where you can find that. The other thing with the Odin Project is it recommends that you do the previous courses before, like you do them in the order that they're listed. Like you do the foundations and then you do the intermediate HTML and then you do JavaScript, doing them in that order. But you don't like technically have to. It's very self-directed. There's no like hard stop rules. Might not be considering how SQL surprised us. Yeah, that's true. Well, because some of those queries, Jay, were like really, really tricky. But we'll see. Might be more like 2 months or 3 months. I don't know. But the React didn't take forever. Like I think the React took about a month, maybe. How long was the React? Yeah, like a month or so. Maybe 5 weeks or something. So I mean, we'll see. I think it was just because I was I was underestimating the difficulty of the queries that it would give me. Yeah, like the SQL Zoo thing was very much like a lot of those queries, especially the ones near the end, were very multifaceted and difficult. Like I wouldn't expect, I'm actually surprised that Odin gave people those queries because that's like pretty advanced, I think. To go from knowing, like, assuming you're not a CS person, to go from not knowing SQL at all to like writing those like multiple nested queries, like that's ridiculous in my opinion. And I maybe, I didn't do the feedback for that course, but that's what I would say. I'd say it's too difficult. The learning curve for that course is too high. I think they've got to ease especially if you're new to databases, like that'd be fucked. But anyway, that's just my sense on that. Yeah. So then so then you also have to. Oops. Concur from what you did see, yes. It was very difficult. Like there was one query, like one question that took me like half an hour, and I kind of needed to cheat a little bit because I was like 70% there on my own, but there was one small double nesting that I missed that wasn't required to solve the problem. So like, even I couldn't do it. And I write, I mean, it's not in SQL necessarily, but I write queries partially for my job. So like even me, like I've been doing database stuff for a couple years, and even those were like tricky. Like I don't think anybody, unless you're writing some crazy project, I don't think anyone's writing queries like that for their apps, right? Like that's a little silly. But I don't know. It's not silly necessarily. It's too difficult for what they need. To use your resources? Yeah, exactly. I used Google. And Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow. Yeah. I used resources that were more than just my brain, I guess. As string as arguments. So I'll just use like single brackets in here. Probably. Not cheating. Fair enough. I was just trying. I'm just full of pride, I guess, and I wanted to do it myself, but it's okay. I know what I read the answer, and I understand what I was missing for that specific. It was related to finding the transfer stop between one stop to another stop for the London bus system or whatever it was. It's kind of ridiculous. If you go back yesterday, at the end of yesterday's VOD, you can see it. I think that was yesterday. I feel like a lot of these things restart application automatically. You'll check it out, yeah. It was, I don't remember, I can't give you an exact timestamp, but it was near the end of yesterday, if I recall. I was kind of, I pushed the stream a little longer than I wanted to, just because I was determined to figure it out. Running a task with Node. Built-in task runner that allows you to execute specific commands defined in package.json. Executes specific commands as defined in package.json. We already know this, actually, right? We already know this kind of structure. Comma here. And then we do like a run, like npm for node run start is equivalent to node app.js, right? Actually, I should probably do like a, I don't know if you can do like an equivalency. Something like that. And then we can do passing arguments to the command. Node run start port 8080. Command execution making it equivalent to node app.js port 8080 is equal to node app.js port. Might actually put this up here. Now that I think about it. Easier to read. Environment variables. The run flag sets specific environment variable. Okay. Run flag sets specific environment. Path to package.json. intentional limitations. Task runner is intentionally more limited compared to other task runners like Camrun or Yarn. Node task runner is more limited than PM4. As it focuses on suited for okay, that's fine. Okay. Nice. Learn how to make HTTP requests with Node. I think I'll probably just like do this. Undisi is an client library that powers and fetch API written from scratch, does not rely on the builds. I'm gonna paste JavaScript. Probably actually put the link to the article in the top here. I can do undisi. Some of these lessons miss important information if you really want to understand everything. Yeah, that's fair. I think this is kind of my understanding is I think from what I know is it gives enough of an introduction to these concepts such that those gaps can be filled in through building projects, Jordan. So like, for example, let's say I finish the Node.js course and then I start building other projects. I might get I might know enough to build a project, but then there might be some gap that I find, right? It's some functionality that wasn't covered in the course, right? But I have enough understanding to go out there and find it, I guess. It gives me enough of a foundation that I can go out there. Most lessons will skip over the part of why you need to set the content type to application JSON. Yeah, well, that's usually because for post, right? This is the data you're sending to the server, right? Like that's my understanding. It's because the server needs to know that the data that the client is sending is JSON data. I know that, but maybe you're right. At least I think that's true. I'm not 100% on that, but I think that's true. Right. So, okay. Why does the server need to know that? Well, because the server needs to know how to process the data, right? Because, yeah, that's also true. Jay makes a good point. The server needs to know how to process the data. I think that's like maybe that's oversimplified. But like, if it's JSON data versus text data, it would be processed differently. Yo, how's it going, Jeremy? Welcome in. Fetch function takes 2 arguments. Where is this simplification? I can't see. Yo, what's up, Aziz? Why start your journey with web dev? That's just what I decided to do, Karthik. I do have my reasons for it, but you can read. I actually addressed that question in my FAQ. I just think it's a good starting point for for development in general. It kind of introduces you to a lot of topics, especially full stack, where you can kind of branch out into other, whether it's systems programming, low level stuff, embedded, whatever it is, or graphics or whatever. Like it gives you enough of a baseline on the development process that you can kind of then use those skills as a foundation and branch out and learn these other realms, right? That's kind of my understanding. Also, the other thing too is web development is fairly easy to get started with for building projects, right? Like web apps, SaaS, whatever it is, right? I can have an idea for something and build it on a website more easily than if it were, and more accessible as well to others. And also web development's just everywhere. Where I'm taking on small projects like landing pages, that's good. That's awesome. That's exactly what you should be doing, I think. Especially if you want to get more comfortable with things like that. So let's see. The fetch function takes 2 arguments. Takes 2 arguments. URL to fetch and then functions objects. To customize the request. Function returns a promise that resolves to response objects. Function returns promise that resolves to response objects, right? Where's the custom fetch happening? Run reuse connections on this to the same server, which can improve performance. Native apps and systems also often require web server to function as well. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's a good starting point. The pool, you can reuse connections to the same server, which can. So the new pool. Where's this pool coming from? Okay, it's coming from Undacy. And then 10, is this like concurrent connections, maybe? Async function, stream Olama completion, Olama pool.request. So I'm assuming the dot request is like the fetch. Something like that. Correct? Yeah, okay. I thought so. Streaming responses. Streams is a feature of Node.js that allows you to read and write chunks of data. Is a feature of Node that allows. I'm not going to copy paste this code because I feel like it's a little bit too convoluted to put in here, but that's okay. Streaming responses with undecy allows you to read and write chunks of data. The request is what comes into the server, and the response is what goes out. Yeah. I do have that. I do know that. I think I put that like right in here somewhere. Yeah. Client and server communicate via HTTP request response. Right here. I've got that in my notes. Okay. Streaming. Okay, so stream is a feature that allows you to rewrite chunks of data. Okay, so we have a stream, and then we get to a get request, and then the response. Then we write writable. Turn new writable from this fetch GitHub repos. And then we write that data that's fetched, right? Where's chunk coming from? I don't know. I guess it's just in this write function. I don't know. It's a little confusing. I'm not gonna lie, but that's okay. But I'll get there. I'll get there at some point, so that'll be okay. Check out the docs for Node's HTTP module in particular. Check out the HTTP create server. Holy shit. Do HTTP create server. Be right at the top, right? Your Angular days, nice. There it is. HTTP create server. I'm not gonna probably write notes on this, but that's okay. CJS ESM. Oh, cool! You can change the import. That just changes the import. Returns the new instance. Actually, you know what? We'll write a little note on it. Create node server with create node server. Just do a little short note here. Nodes HTTP. Allows or returns an instance of http.server, which is what? Which extends server, which abstracts the creation of a TCP/IPC server. What the hell is IPC? You're going down the rabbit hole here a little bit, guys. IPC. Inter-process communication. Okay. What is was going for, and this was most lesson skip, is that if bytes clearly map to UTF-8 characters, and that's why you set it as application JSON. If they clearly map to UTF-8 characters, that you don't need to third-party package to decode the bytes. Ah, I see. Okay. That's more of a low-level explanation. But yeah, mine wasn't technically wrong. It was just oversimplified. That makes sense, though. Because the bytes might be encoding like image data, in which case the bytes would map to UTF-8, right? Characters? Because image data is not character data. Or something like that, just as an example. But that makes sense. Returns an instance of job specification usage. I'll just put usage here. And then we'll just include this embed here. Then what's this one for? Create a local server to retrieve. What's the difference of it? Request listener. Request listener is a function that is automatically to the request event. Okay, where's that request listener though? Server.on request. Listen to the request event. So this is like a version 1. Like this is like an alternative. I feel like this is pretty much the same thing. Using this server.on. Something like this. You don't know how you can just write stuff down and understand what it means, like a return instance of HTTP server? Like what does that mean? Well, I mean, I think again, I'm not too concerned with, like, I think, okay, this is kind of what I'll kind of describe what I'm saying. Like, I don't care necessarily to go all the way down the rabbit hole and figure out exactly what it means. I kind of paste these things. I understand that an HTTP.server is some kind of abstraction of a server, whether it's like a software of a server that runs on the server. That's my understanding. It's some abstraction of that. Do I need to know exactly how it works? I'm not too concerned with that right away, at least right now. All I'm concerned with is that is the abstraction of that, right? Like, so okay, so it creates a server for me. That's all I really feel like I need to know at this point. Okay, yeah. See, it's just a difference in style, Jordan. It's just a difference in style. See, for me, like, I'm okay. I'm perfectly happy with just kind of keeping it abstract, right? Like, for instance, this HTTP.server, I don't need to care about how this works. As long as it's a server that lets me do the things like requests, like handle requests and further things with Node. It's like an instance of that lets the client interact with the database, right? It's kind of like the server that sits between the client and the database or whatever it is, right? And as long as that server can handle those those communication channels, that's all I care about, at least at this point. Because if I get too bogged down in the details, and I'm not saying that your approach is worse or anything, this is just my thinking, is if I get bogged down in those details, I'll go far down the rabbit hole and I won't make any progress. I'll be like stuck at like this systems level programming that like will kind of halt my progress, right? And that's totally fine to learn in the future, but I think to actually like do things and to make progress, I'm totally happy sitting with those abstractions. That's just me though, personally, right? Like I can sit here and see this, right? And I'm happy to let this API, this HTTP node, like API from Node, do all the work for me. And then it's like, okay, so I give it this information, I give it the content type stuff, I give it, you know, this information, and you know, I'm going to be fully honest with you. I'm not 100% on how this works, but as I begin to work with it in projects, right, I'll get more of an intuitive understanding of the API, I think, as I build stuff. But again, I'm putting it in the notes just so it's there, so I can look at it in the future and be like, okay, now I can cross-reference what I'm doing with my project with my notes and see exactly the structure. You believe actual change and innovation comes from knowing crap at a very deep level. That's fair enough. You're totally entitled to that. I think again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. I just think that can come with time. My philosophy is that I'll get that kind of deeper understanding, and it'll kind of build on top as time goes on, right? It's kind of like a breadth first versus depth first learning style, right? Like you're more of like a depth first, where you go deep into a topic and then deep into a topic and then make the connections as you go deeper into different topics, right? You're digging a bunch of deep holes. Whereas for me, I kind of like to cover, like blanket cover at the top level of abstraction first, and then maybe go down a level, cover that, go down a level. It's more of a breadth first, kind of to use a graph analogy, I guess. No, exactly. I think, well, and first of all, Jordan, too, the other thing is my goal isn't necessarily to get a job right away anyway. I already have a job. I'm not necessarily hurting for a job or anything like this. I'm doing this, I would say 75% for my own interest. Slash, you know, eventually I do want to monetize it in some way, but I'm not overly trying to speed run getting a job or anything. And I think the other thing too is it would be ridiculous for employers to expect their employees to know everything, especially in the day of this day and age with AI, where AI kind of fills in those gaps, right? I'm not saying it does a good job of filling in those gaps all the time necessarily, just that you know, I feel like junior devs, especially with AI, are kind of cooked, which is why I'm doing it this way. Oh, really? In computer science? Yeah, I work in IT, Jordan. But that's kind of different a little bit. How's it going, Mark? I'm about to actually end stream here in a minute, but kind of, you know, I got some stuff to do this afternoon, but that's good. I'll cap it off there, and then I'll finish the rest of this getting started here. But I don't know. I kind of just, you know, I've got my style of doing things, and yeah, I don't know. My job in IT was kind of lucky, I would say. I got that was the only place I could get an internship. I applied to other internships. I wasn't successful in those because this was a couple of years ago when the field was more cooked than it is now, because the initial AI hype cycle was still in full swing. I'm not saying it isn't in full swing anymore. I just feel like, you know, we've had AI for longer and have more understood. Anyway, I don't know. I had trouble, so I found an internship in IT, and I got a return offer there. So my day to day is a lot more administrative and more like systems administration rather than coding. I don't really do any coding in my day job. But anyway, I digress on that. But anyway, with that being said, you know, thanks for coming. If you were here, I really appreciate you watching my stream and following along. And if you want to see me more, you know, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. That'd be fantastic. Join the Discord community if you want more stream updates and to chat with my community, other things. And I'll be taking tomorrow off, and I'll be back Tuesday evening my time. But if you join the Discord, you can see exactly what that translates to in your time zone. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon. Have a good time or a good night.